Hello and welcome to the Hotty Toddy Readers Spotlight, brought to you by the University Libraries. I'm your host, Cecilia Parks, and today we are joined by Dr. Sheila Skemp. Dr. Skemp is a professor emeritus in the Department of History. So Dr. Skemp, thank you for being with us today. Please tell us what book you're recommending.
I'm recommending Alfred F. Young's The Shoemaker and the Tea Party, Memory, and the American Revolution.
Great, so tell us a little bit about this book and what you found interesting about it.
Okay, the book is divided into two parts. The first part tells the story of a young man by the name of George Robert Twelve Hughes, who lived in Boston during the American Revolution and in the years preceding it. And he took part in something that we now call the Boston Tea Party. The second half is about the memory of the revolution, what people in power did after the revolution to try to shape people's understanding of what the revolution was all about. And in the process, they erased people like George Robert Twelve Hughes from the story. And instead of talking about the revolutionary part of the revolution, the destruction of property, the tarring and feathering, all of the riots, the demonstrations, they talked about winning the war, about nation building after the war was over with, and just erased the revolutionary part of the revolution for a generation of Americans. One thing that I found kind of interesting about the book, and that is that in his research, Dr. Young found out that during the American Revolution itself, nobody ever talked about the Boston Tea Party, which is what we hear about today. They talked about the destruction of the tea. The destruction of the tea was a serious business. It was illegal. It was the destruction of private property. It was an attack on authority. It started the revolution. And it was a serious business. It was only after the war was over with, when they were trying to make the war less revolutionary, sometime in the 1820s, that people started talking about the Boston Tea Party, which makes it sound frivolous and fun and like a party, and something that women could go to as well as men. This is kind of emblematic of the story of, as the book portrays it, because you have a serious event being turned into an event that's not so serious after all, once the war was over with.
Okay, great. So why should Faculty 7 students?
Partly because it's a good read,
yeah.
And I don't say that about history books very often, to be quite frank, but Young writes very, very well and very, very accessibly. I've assigned it to freshmen, I've assigned it to graduate students. It's a book that anybody can read and understand and appreciate. And I think it's also important because it gives us the story of somebody who was illiterate, who was not very important, and yet who was part of American history, and who had a vision of America that was very different from the vision of people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and John Adams and all of the people that we know so much about, who wanted equality, who wanted social change, who wanted opportunity, not just independence. And this book gives you kind of a sense of what the war meant for some people, if not for everybody. And watching the way the powers that be changed history because of their control over demonstrations and celebrations and monuments and what went into history books. People of an entire generation really lost their memory of what the revolution had been all about, at least for some people.
Okay. Well, that sounds like a fascinating read. And if you were interested in reading The Shoemaker and the Tea Party, Memory in the American Revolution, you can stop by the J.D. Williams Library and pick up a copy. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Skemp, and thank you for watching.
Thank you for having me.